This episode is proudly sponsored by Amber L. Contact us today to learn how you can be a part of the vibration experience. Good evening and welcome to Vibration, where we empower individuals to speak their distinct truth, passions, and personal message on a global online stage. I'm your host, Michelle McDonald, passionate foodie, author, and entrepreneur. And tonight, I send a special thank you to our show sponsor, Amber L. And also, we are diving into the topic, promoting healthy food relationships for kids. Our guest speaker this evening is Ernestia Fraser, who is a traditionally published author, award-winning poet, and screenwriter with a double Bachelor of Arts degree in English and Communication, as well as a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing, Screenwriting. In 2011, her screenplay, Inside the Fallen Moon, won first prize in the Hollywood Black Film Festival International Storyteller Competition. Following the success of her script, Fraser was awarded a screenwriting fellowship at the Writers Institute for Diversity in Los Angeles, which was facilitated by Harrison Reiner, a CBS television story analyst. Her literary memoir, Carnival of Love, A Tale of a Bahamian Family, and poetry collection, Shallow Water, A Short History of Where I'm From, are now being taught in high schools across the Bahamas, her native homeland. Her other publications include I Am Loved, Mummy, Daddy, I'm Hungry, and Pray With Me, all children's books, as well as Carnival of Love, a study guide. Fraser is currently living in the Bahamas, working as a writing instructor at the tutoring station and an editor at Master Writing 242. Ernestia, welcome to the stage tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel the welcome already.
Awesome. It is truly a joy to have you here with us this evening, especially on the topic that we are going to get into, which is so close to my heart and also something that a lot of parents want to have for their kids at a young age. With such a diversity of books and forms of writings that you have, as well as publications within your portfolio, what was the inspiration behind you becoming an author and a writer in many facets?
Well, Michelle, writing for me sort of felt like a natural expression. I can't say that the passion for it was defined when I was a young girl, but I remember my earliest memory of writing was really writing cards, greeting cards for persons. So, just being able to express thank you or I care for you, I love you. For me, that did something to me as a young child. So writing became more defined as I transitioned to college, and professors within the English department encouraged my different gifts, encouraged my craft, and actually some felt that I should pursue it as a real interest and passion, and so it sort of took off from there. So definitely committed to becoming a writer. It's not the only thing I do, but it's definitely my greatest passion. So now I'm here.
So tell us more about the other aspects of your portfolio. I know you touched on writing, but there were a few things that were mentioned in the bibliography, our introduction of you. Can you expand on that for us?
Okay, yeah. So writing is one of my main passions, but I am a teacher. I've taught in high schools and also on the college level. I've taught various subjects: history, religious knowledge, English, literature, and so forth. So those particular skills, after being honed and refined, I translated into other areas, and I translated into tutoring. So I do writing tutoring, on my platforms. And then also, I've really more so recently gotten into teaching creative writing. I teach other forms, but I teach creative writing on the platforms and actually part-time at the University of the Bahamas. So those are some of the different areas that I've been engaging and exploring here in Nassau.
Excellent. I love that. I love how you were able to take the skills that you have and you refined them, you honed on them, and you created them into something extremely expressive, a different way to connect with the youth here in the Bahamas through teaching, forming a business, and just being able to excel in that area. And we thank you for that, being able to bring that here to us in the Bahamas. So, with your book, Mommy, Daddy, I'm Hungry, published in 2021, it truly highlights an essential aspect of eating for children, which is having a healthy relationship with food. As we know, this is not something that is commonly talked about. We've kind of gotten used to kids not liking certain foods, not wanting to serve it to them, just kind of meeting them where they are. When in actuality, there's a lot of importance around changing that narrative. Why do you believe that this is important?
Well, I believe it's important to introduce healthy eating habits to children, and especially at that particular age, because it's critical to our life's quality. So I personally feel that, sometimes the priorities are wrong in terms of the things that we emphasize. Um, and I've seen this throughout my life. Because I have a lot of nieces and nephews and so forth. But when we talk about food with children, I think the highlight is to talk about fast food. And I can remember being a kid and being introduced to McDonald's and Wendy's, and don't let it be the Happy Meal. We got excited about those different food expressions, and they even became icons. Fast food became the icon of exciting food.
Yeah.
So as a young child, that, well, I would say sort of processed food is what I had a relationship with. It wasn't the only type of foods that I ate, but it was the type of food that as a child, I got most excited about. So I think I wanted to definitely redefine what should be introduced and what we as adults need to be thinking about in terms of food and nutrition for young children. And so I have a niece, and this is actually where the inspiration of Mommy and Daddy, I'm Hungry, that's where it came from, my relationship with my young niece. So she was around 1 to 2 at the time, but she was able to vocalize the types of foods that she wanted. And I can remember because, there were times I would sit down and talk to her just to have a conversation, because I think that's very important when you're impressing upon young children. But, I can remember we had sort of a routine conversation. How are you doing? Do you want to come with me to the food store? What do you want from the food store? And I said, and she was about 2 at the time, but again, she was able to vocalize. And I asked her, give me 3 things that you want me to get you from the food store.
Okay.
Her 3 things were chocolate, chips, and lollipop. And she was able to vocalize that at 2. And so I said, well, listen, we'll consider those things, but I need you to choose something other than junk food. And even at that age, she understood what junk food was. And so I said, choose something else. Choose maybe a fruit or vegetable that I can get you. And I introduced, I said, what about broccoli? Because I've seen her eat broccoli at times. And she said, yeah, and broccoli. Okay. So I felt, it was important just to, in terms of presenting food and nutrition to children, to preference and prioritize the healthy options, because that's something that's going to factor into their healthy habits, into their well-being, and not just at that moment, but for the rest of their life. So for me, it was important to introduce that early at that stage, because if I feel like if you don't, then it's going to be quite difficult to have someone connect with healthy food lifestyles thereafter.
Yeah, so true. When they're young, they have these very impressionable minds. And so it's really the key time to be able to introduce them to things, allow them to eat things in certain ways. Sometimes you may not like something raw, but you like it cooked and it's still healthy. So I applaud you for having that conversation with her so that it gets her mind going. She already knew the difference between healthy and junk, but you were emphasizing, like, let's focus on the healthy. She may not have understood why, but at the end of the day, she got it. And so that's really what it was at the end of the day. And Ernestia, it was so fascinating. When I sent this flyer out, there were so many people who were excited, parents especially, for this topic. They were like, this is so needed. I protect my kids all the time. It's so good to be able to know how can I connect with them and reinforce it in their language, in their way. And so for that reason, I thank you for creating this book. Sometimes we feel as though we have done something that is small, in comparison to everything else that we're doing. But truly, what we put into books, what we thought as just an idea or a concept, can really do so much. So I really wanted to share that with you because there are a lot of people who are looking forward to this episode.
Thank you.
So you've touched on it a little bit, but can you tell us a bit more how your book teaches kids to eat healthier?
Sure, I can. So I think the book, the sort of power is in the representation. So Mommy, Daddy, I'm Hungry is quite a short story. It's a short tale, with it being geared towards a children's audience. And so it really follows the main character, Johnny, a young boy who wakes up, and of course, his tummy grumbles, and so he knows it's time for breakfast. And the book displays healthier food choices. And so, there's no McDonald's, there's no Wendy's, or any form of junk food. And I'm not saying, you need to completely omit those other food choices out of your life. That's fine. I think life is a balance. But the book only displayed healthy food choices. And so I wanted that to come into the narrative, into the conversation, and to be represented. Because I think something happens when certain stories or images are canonized and are put out there, and you're able to interact with that, see that, and read that. It sort of becomes somewhat of a standard, right? And so and I think kids are that way in the way that they're impressionable. Let's say they see something on TV or something on TikTok, online, or in a book. And so the context of interacting with that image or story, I think, reaches their imagination. So, and not just that, their thought process. So because now they see those particular types of food displayed, right, in a book that looks cool, that's now a part of their nutritional reference. So they can definitely, when they go to the store, okay, well, maybe let me see if I can find something that Johnny had. And, the choices in the book, it's nothing out of the ordinary. But like I said, it's just something that guides, I guess, the younger persons, the kids, and even the families, the parents, to think about. So, yes.
Yeah, you said something that is so true. When kids connect with something, they carry it everywhere. So you'll see them, as you said, go to the grocery store. It's like, no, 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 mommy, what did Johnny get? Read chapter 5, page number 5. And, he said broccoli, I want broccoli. Let's try that. And it also gets the conversation started because they may actually see foods in there that they've never tasted before, maybe not even ever been in the fridge. And now they want to know, like, how can I be like him? And it shows that representation in all forms truly, truly matters, because if I see myself as Johnny and he's doing good, then I can do good too because he did it. And it's just so simple like that for kids, and they just run with it.
They do, for sure. For sure.
So you have a collection of children's books as well as adult books. What is it that connects you to writing children's books and reaching out to that audience?
That's a very good question. I actually never imagined myself as a children's writer. That's because I was more fascinated with screenwriting, poetry, and fiction, creative nonfiction. So the sort of adult forms of creative writing. Um, and I probably never really interacted so much with children's books as a child because I didn't really start
Mm,
reading until I was a teenager. So
okay.
my library of children's books was quite small. So I never essentially turned my focus that way. But I remember during the time the children's books series came up or the ideas came up, I was working on a long project. I was working on a middle grade novel, and it was quite exhausting. I was getting tired, and I needed a break from the long form. So, I decided to write a children's book, which is a short form for me. And the reason I felt confident and comfortable going in that direction is because I feel like everyone has an inner child. And so for me, it was remedial because I was so tired and so exhausted and fatigued from delving into the creative like I said, in the long form that I needed. I wanted to still stay creative, still stay connected to my craft, but I wanted to do something short and fulfilling, but that also brought out the excitement in me. And I think that's where I started to let my inner child out. And I know myself, I love kids. I love kids. I love babies. I love actually having conversation with them, even if they can't vocalize or talk back to me. It's just something that I love because they have such potential. So I always
Mhm.
try to impress upon them just different ideas and words. So that's really how I got into that field. I wanted to replenish myself through connecting with my inner child. And then, once I realized that, listen, I enjoy this. I
Yeah.
enjoy this. I, I got really passionate about telling stories from a child's perspective in terms of their vantage point. So I got excited about teaching or wanting to share values that I prioritize, healthy eating, and that's an area that I'm working on and learning about because there's always, some new research or some adjustment with a type of food that was once endorsed and no longer endorsed. So it's an area I'm still learning. But yeah, I do have a book about prayer, and then also about just self-affirmation and empowering yourself through love and not necessarily from others, but from yourself. So why not share those messages on a fundamental level? Why not
Mhm.
reach, the young persons where they're, so impressionable again, their brains, their cognitive capacity is forming. So I feel like that's an important area that people really, really need to look at and to start thinking about in terms of building their library.
I absolutely agree. You said a lot of things that truly resonates when it comes to children. I loved how you shared your excitement of getting into it, realizing that you loved it, and you continue with it. You continue to create books and keep in touch with your inner child, as we all have. And what's so fascinating about all of this is that even as adults, because of that inner child, we connect with the characters in the book. And sometimes we even wish, I had this book when I was a kid. I think this would have really made a difference. And we find ourselves changing because of children's books. So it's like, even though it's written for the child audience, it's because it's written by an adult and connecting with their inner child that it connects with us as well. I think that's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. We have that, interest to connect, and it does engage us, and that's an interesting time period, the childhood, even the young adult time period, and I'm going to bring up cinema because I also have that background. If you look at some of the production companies, the major production companies, um, they were always led to tell those stories that, I don't like using the word target, but that connected with young kids. And those, many of those stories harbored a lot of morals and a lot of tales, in terms of, well, principles, I should say. And going to the cinema to see, let's say, a Disney film or like animation, those tales, although, and with children, although those tales were designed for them, we're also connecting, we're also learning, we're also probably crying at those emotional moments, those emotional beats, and learning these different values and principles that, of course, mirror our adult life. And I think everyone needs to probably take a course on how to connect with their inner child and, open themselves up to, um, relearning things even on that sort of, rudimental level. So, because there are some things that we learned as a child that probably wasn't the right thing, but, of course, some of us are stubborn, so we still maintain, certain habits, inspired by certain thoughts. So it'll be interesting to revisit the fundamentals in certain ways and see how much we have on track and perhaps some of the things that we need to adjust because maybe we were never taught as a child to sort of go in this particular direction, right?
So, so true. I know that a lot of my audience members can completely relate to everything that you're saying because we've all found ourselves, right? Beauty and the Beast, Moana. It teaches you something, and the child's excited. Their eyes are glued to the screen, and we are right there, like it's connecting with us. I
Hmm.
get it. I got the life lesson. I walk away changed, and we don't even think about it, but it happens all the time.
It
Absolutely
does.
all the
It
time.
does. It does.
And even as an example, when you mentioned relearning, this shows why having a book for children on healthy eating is so important because a lot of us as adults in the Western world, we battle with the things that we grew up eating. And as you stated, we get excited about, right? So the things that are salty, that are sweet, that are our comfort foods. And for some of us, we truly aren't adjusted to eating healthy. And so knowing that our children, our nieces, nephews, kids, they can grow up now with a different perspective, it can be something that can change their life. Absolutely. And their health. They can understand the value of all of that.
You're completely right. And I think really culturally the time is now. And I do see a lot of, movement, in that area in terms of moving towards eating healthy. Um, but I do think there can, be a greater push in that area because, the society as we know it is plagued with, certain ailments and certain diseases that's really for the most part related to food. And, a lot of times, persons don't look at how they can change or they don't feel impressed to change until it's a little too late, until things are too critical. But, we definitely need to instill certain values, related to food. But if it's food, if it's exercise, just positive values as a culture, as a society, um, that makes us into our better self, right?
Yeah.
Collectively and then personally. So we have work to do.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And so this is just a reminder to all of us as adults, no matter who the children are, even your god kids, remember you can make a lasting impression with them when it comes to them understanding how to be better. As you stated, being your highest self, a child can still experience that, being their highest self. And, the difference is because they know you and they love you, we all know there's nothing like a child's love. They will listen and they'll respect you, they'll value what you're saying. And they're like, you know what? If Annie's doing it, if Mummy's doing it, if Gottie's doing it, I'm going to do it. I want to do it. This must be something important, So just a reminder that yes, we do have a lot of work to do, but we are going in the right direction and we can do a lot, especially through a book.
Yeah, well said. Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome. So, of course, Ernestia, we have to know, can we expect any new books, screenwriting, memoirs? What's up next for you?
Well, I guess if I'm not writing, I'm reading, but I do have some projects that I have completed. I think the one I'm most excited about is a middle grade novel, but it really is very accessible to adults. In fact, I think I geared it more towards adult, but traditional publicists will probably say, well, we can frame this as a young or a middle grade novel for, young readers at least. But it's called The Adventures of, The Island of Shelby Mott, because I changed the title.
Okay.
And it's set here right in Nassau, and it's about a young tomboy named Shelby who is in love with a boy. And granted, I didn't mean to do this, but I duplicated the name Johnny. Shelby's in love with Johnny. It's just about them exploring their world and the complexity of adults, and really uncovering friendships and just compassion for others in the process. But this is a sort of homage to the good old days when we used to go outside and climb trees and
Oh, yeah.
sort of build forts. So it's a time before technology. So I'm quite excited because while it's not autobiographical, this is not me at all. Some of my childhood is quite reminiscent or is quite on display because I was that young child, going to, especially if it was summer, picking fruit and probably running away from the neighbor because I just picked their mango and have to run off and so forth. So all that to say, I had a really good childhood. So I'm excited to share that particular book, which I'm hoping to take the traditional route and then share with, persons here.
Well, this sounds exciting. You're stepping out of the box. I really like the infusion of nostalgia because I remember those days as well, like beach picnics, walking on the sand, very, how do you say it? I don't want to say simple, but things that you could relate to, right? Just step outside of your home, the small joys in life that you could just embrace and you were happy and there wasn't this kind of instant gratification of technology. So I really like that you are infusing that into your book so that others can kind of step back into that time and be like, wow, I really remember when. And you mentioning like picking fruit. So one of the things my older brother and I did when we were small is we had like a tall mango tree. And of course there's a rooftop. We're being adventurous, especially when you have an older brother. And so we would climb up there to kind of get the fruits that were ripe. And also we went to Grandma Ham and it was all about like picking cocoa plums, picking between like the pink, right, the purple. So when you said that, it kind of like brought those memories back. So I can only imagine what your readers are going to feel when they get into your books. I'm really excited for you.
Thank you so much. And it is exciting to write and actually reflect on sort of our culture before technology. And I'm going to put this out there because you re-emphasized or you reiterated the word memories. During that time, outside of technology, we created so many rich memories and studies have been done that speaks to sort of tactile experiences, sort of lending towards long-term memory. So with technology, those memories technically aren't so much generated. So it's interesting. So, the book will definitely be a tribute to, again, a time of simplicity, a time where having fun meant just going outside, just stepping outside, going in the grass, and then figuring it out after that, and, the time of curfews where your father, your mother said, come back inside when the lights turn on the lamp pole, and so forth. So it's an interesting tale, and I think there's a lot of beautiful dimensions in our culture that should really go on display. And I think the world of literature, the world of art, and the different creative outlets definitely have a responsibility to explore that and to share that.
Yes, absolutely true. I am so waiting to see that book come out for you. I know that it's going to do a lot for Bahamian audience out here, remembering those days and falling back into that space. There's a unique beauty to that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ernestia, we congratulate you once again for your many accolades as an author, award-winning poet, and screenwriter. Most importantly, we thank you for the positive message found in your book, Mommy, Daddy, I'm Hungry, which guides and teaches kids to select and enjoy healthy foods in a fun way. Through this book, kids are able to easily identify which foods are good for their body from a young age, a perspective that will be highly valuable to them throughout their life, as we have talked about. To purchase a copy of this book and her other books, including Shallow Water, a short story of where I'm from, and Carnival of Love, a tale of a Bahamian family, you can visit Amazon.com, where they're both available as Kindle ebooks. As a reminder, this episode is proudly sponsored by Amber L. A special thank you to our audience for watching and to our guest speaker who continues to motivate and empower children through her impactful and positive books, as well as highlighting her Bahamian heritage. And I'm so happy to hear that she's continuing to do that in her upcoming book. Ernestia Fraser, we thank you. I invite you all to follow me for more show updates and tune in next week for another episode of Vibration, where we raise your frequency and amplify your truth. Bye, everyone.
Bye, and thank you again.
You're welcome.